Okay, so the topic for this one is capital markets, and we have here an article from Vedantu.com, types of capital markets. So again, this is one of the financial markets that we've discussed previously. So a capital market is where people indulge in trading of various financial securities such as bonds, stocks, debentures, etc. This act of trading is carried out by individuals and even institutions or companies or organizations. Okay? Again, capital market, ano yung transaction dito? From the word capital, funding, capital, investment, na ginagamit ng businesses, organizations, or entrepreneurs to operate normally a business, to make it more productive, and to use it in stimulating economic activities then. Okay, so normally, business, operation ng business. Okay, and then they do that, di ba dalawa lang naman ang capital structure ng mga businesses, companies, and even governments. Okay, dalawa, liability, which is normally in the form of bonds. By issuing bonds, nakakapag-raise ng capital ang mga businesses. And then secondly is of course equity, pag-i-issue ng ordinary shares or preferred shares. Okay, so you have stocks. Yung debentures, it's a kind of liability din, parang bonds din, pero meron siyang what you call terms and conditions. Kumbaga covenant, kailangan ay ma-maintain ng isang company na mangungutang yung terms and conditions, and kapag hindi niya na-maintain, magiging demandable yung loans, okay, yung inutang niya. Kunwari, kailangan mag-maintain ka ng 1,000,000 piso in your cash, okay? Kapag nag-fall below 1 million yung cash na naka-report niya sa financial statements, magiging due and demandable yung pinautang. So, bayaran mo na agad yung utang, okay? So, kumbaga, depende sa usapan paano nila gagawin, but there are those kinds of types of funding or raising of capital. Okay, it is unlike a money market which deals with liquid financial instruments. However, you should note that even a capital market deals with money but indirectly. Okay, syempre yung pag bumili ka ng bonds, bumili ka ng stocks, it does involve money. Even capital markets offer. Nonetheless, both are financial markets, and the only thing that makes them different from each other is the type of assets with which they deal. Yung money market, more on short-term, short-term instruments that are easily convertible into cash. Tapos on the side naman ng capital market, normally mga long-term, tapos in the form of bonds and equity or stocks. Okay. While the money market deals with short-term assets, the capital market deals with long-term assets. What is a capital market? A market where buyer and seller come together for trading long-term securities is called capital market. Securities like stocks and bonds are sold and bought by various institutions, companies. Institutions and companies are considered as investors kapag sila yung bumibili ng stocks and bonds. It is often considered an effective medium to serve as a pathway for entities having a surplus fund to be transferred to the ones who need the capital for their own usage, normally for expansion, okay, or growth ng company. Such companies then utilize these funds in multiple ways into productive areas. Since these securities are long-term, they are likely to remain with the buyer for a year at least. Pag 1 year or less, short term. Pag more than a year, long term. Okay? What are the different instruments of capital market? So, meron tayong dalawa, equity, saka debt. Pero yung equity, merong 2 types din. Yung common shares na tinatawag or equity shares. These shares are the prime source of finance for a public limited or joint stock company. When individuals or institutions purchase them, shareholders have the right to vote and also benefit from dividends kapag nag-declare ang organization. If they have profits, tapos they declare part of the profits as dividends. Shareholders in such cases are regarded as the owners of the company since they hold its shares. Tapos yung preference shares naman, preferred stock, medyo above equity, above the common with regards to receiving benefits mas preferred sila in such that they get priority sa pag-receive ng dividend. Sa kapag nag-liquidate yung corporation, sila rin yung unang makakatanggap ng liquidating value, okay, compared dun sa common shares. These are the secondary sources of finance for public limited company. As the name suggests, holders of such shares enjoy exclusive rights or preferential treatment by that company in specific aspects. Normally, nakasama naman siya sa name. Let's say, yung sa equity kasi, yung common shares, depende sa kikitain ng company. Tapos, depende sa magiging decision ng board of directors kung magkano ang i-declare na dividends. Sa preference shares, minsan, pwedeng yung preferred treatment nila. Let's say, naka-indicate na every year, 12% yung matatanggap nila. Tapos, pwedeng meron tinatawag na cumulative or non-cumulative. Kapag cumulative, ibig sabihin, kahit hindi mag-declare ng dividend for this particular year, supposedly may matatanggap. Tapos, the following year, kung kailan mag-declare ng dividend yung company, yung arrears or yung mga nakalipas na taon na hindi nag-declare ng dividends, may matatanggap pa rin sila na dividends equal to the percentage na nakalagay dun sa kanilang preferred shares. Okay? Kasi normally nakalagay sa pangalan ng preference shares kung anong type yung preference nila. Okay? Kung ano yung specific preferential treatment na matatanggap ng holders. Okay? Ito nga, they are likely to receive their dividend before equity shareholders. However, they do not have any voting rights, typically. Okay? Yung voting rights, normally meron sa equity shares. Hindi na siya normally. Kumbaga, ito talaga yung may voting rights. Yung preference shares, pwedeng meron, pwedeng wala. Okay? Debt security. So, sa debt security, meron tayong dalawa rin. Bonds and debentures. Yung bonds, fixed income instrument siya. Yun nga, merong face value, magkano yung amount ng bonds. Tapos, naka-indicate yung interest rate, annual rate, kung magkano yung matatanggap mo na interest rate doon. Tapos, nakalagay din yung maturity period, gaano katagal mo hahawakan itong bond na to bago siya i-redeem ng company. Doon sa redemption ng bond, edi kung magkano yung face value, yun yung ibibigay or ibabalik sa yung company. Let's say you acquired bonds for 1 million pesos. 5 taon mo siyang hahawakan, tapos 12% annually. So, every year, may matatanggap kang 12% nung 1 million. Okay? Tapos, after 5 years, yung maturity period, matatanggap mo ulit yung 1 million mo. Okay? So, ganon. Ini-issue siya ng government sa kanang private corporations to finance infrastructural development and other types of projects. It can be viewed as a loaning instrument where a bonds issuer is the borrower. Kung sino yung nag-issue, siya yung nangungutang. Kasi siya yung makakatanggap ng pera from the sale of the bonds. Bondholders are considered as creditors concerning such an entity and are entitled to periodic interest payment. So, depende rin dun sa bond certificate kung ang nakalagay ba ay annually na matatanggap or semi-annually or quarterly or monthly. Okay? Furthermore, bonds carry a fixed locked-in period. Therefore, issuers of bonds are mandated to repay the principal amount on the maturity date to bondholders. So, yun nga, after nung kung ano man yung maturity period, 5 years man yan or 10 years, ibabalik yung principal, pinakang principal amount. Debentures, unlike bonds, debentures are unsecured investment options. Consequently, they are not backed by any asset or collateral. Kumbaga, walang collateral. Here, lending is entirely based on mutual trust, and herein, investors act as potential creditors of an issuing institution or company. All these 4 instruments are parts of the capital market. Since each is unique and has distinguishing features, they are useful in different ways for a company. Therefore, it is crucial to understand the different types of capital market instruments so that you can acknowledge their purposes. Okay. Alright, so, iba pala yung nasa isip ko kanina, no? Siguro covenanted debt yung nabanggit ko kanina with regards to having terms and conditions or yung covenant nga na tinatawag. In which case, kapag hindi siya tawag dito, na-keep ng borrower is magiging due and demandable yung debt. Okay, but there is that kind of debt then. Okay, and then this one is debentures naman, unsecured investment options naman pala siya. Walang collateral, tapos based on mutual trust lang. Okay. What are the functions of the capital market? So irrespective of the capital market and its type, their functions are similar. Ito. Enhance trading of securities. Nagpo-provide ng liquidity of capital instruments. Provides a common platform to both investors and savers. Accumulation of capital for companies that need them. Stimulates economic growth kasi yung hindi ginagamit na pera ng mga investors nagagamit ng mga borrowers. Okay? It improves the process of allocation of capital. Kasi yun nga, from hindi gumagamit to sa mga gumagamit. Prepares for continuity of funds availability. It reduces information and transaction charges significantly. Faster valuation of securities. Provides proper channeling of funds to be used productively. Therefore, the capital market is an effective medium for mobilizing funds between investors and sellers. With the functions listed above, it is evident that the capital market is not only a platform for fund transfer but also has its long-term advantages. Okay? Siguro bigyan natin ng highlight yung contribution to economy. It stimulates economic activity. It allows companies to provide more employment and to transact with more parties or more individuals, okay, which in a way contributes to the overall GDP of the country. It is useful in boosting national incomes, GDP na nga, saka yung GNP din, thereby enhancing the overall economic growth of a nation as a whole. Measure of economic growth is the GDP, Gross Domestic Product. Tapos measure of economic development is the GNP, Gross National Product. Ano kaibahan? Yung GDP, parang dito lang local. Pero yung GNP, including yung sale din outside of the country, pero product ng country natin. Something like that. Okay? As a result, you will need to understand the concepts from the grassroots to get an in-depth idea of a capital market, meaning and types and functions and significance. Okay, so ano daw yung types of capital market? Actually, bawat financial market, diba yung mga different types of markets, I think almost all of them do have primary and secondary markets. Kasi ibang classification naman. Yung types ng financial markets like capital market, stock market, bond market, money market, they are more on the type of instrument. Pero yung primary and secondary market, more on first issue ba siya or trade between investors ang usapan. So, magkaibang types of classification. So again, primary kapag direct from issuer to the investor, tapos secondary kapag from investor to another investor. Okay? Types of capital markets, primary and secondary. Capital market and its function facilitates the trading of securities and does not deal directly with money, but it does involve money. How does the capital market work? Main objective is to act as a medium wherein funds can be transferred from the ones having sufficient disposable income to businesses that require capital. Okay? So, ayun lang and ng article. So, ito ay para sa capital markets. Again, we have the different financial instruments. Equity, we have ordinary shares and preferred shares. And then for the debt or for the bonds, we have the liability. Debt security. We have the bonds and the debentures. Okay? So, ayan lang for this one. Thanks and bye.